The viral photos of Russian merchant ships with mounted guns and heavy equipment aren't proof that Moscow is losing its mind or escalating into random aggression. They are the visible signature of a desperate, rational pivot from hiding in plain sight to fighting back. For 3 years, Ukraine's drone swarm has denied Russia control of the Black Sea, turning their elite navy into sitting ducks and strangling oil exports via sanctions. The result? Moscow is abandoning its old strategy of total secrecy because hiding no longer works when you are being hunted or blockaded. These armed vessels represent a shift to asymmetric deterrence, using civilian hulls as mobile, low-cost platforms to protect supply lines and strike back at critical infrastructure where traditional naval assets cannot safely go without suffering catastrophic losses. To understand why this is happening, we must first look at the catalyst that broke Russia's maritime dominance. Over nearly 3 years of conflict, Ukrainian unmanned surface vessels and cruise missiles have inflicted heavy losses on the Russian Black Sea fleet. This success forced Moscow to rely less on capital ships that are high-value targets. The traditional approach was to keep warships in port or far from danger zones because they can be sunk by cheap drones with alarming efficiency. In response, Russia is integrating special operations forces with conventional merchant assets to create a hybrid defense layer. This allows them to project power and protect supply lines at lower risk than sending expensive destroyers into contested waters where the odds of survival are plummeting. The military has stopped trying to win a traditional naval war they cannot afford. Instead, they are adapting their entire economic fleet to fill the operational vacuum left by their crippled navy. Quick resource note: I keep a curated set of Amazon search links in the description for books, gear, and tools relevant to this channel's topics. Some are affiliate links, so I may earn a commission at no extra cost to you. Please consider supporting the channel by using those links if you find something useful. The evidence for this shift is found in the sheer scale and changing purpose of what was once called the Shadow Fleet. As of mid-2024, Russia's Ghost Fleet comprises over 600 vessels transporting roughly 70% of its oil exports. These operations generate between $87 billion and $100 billion annually, funds that rival or exceed all Western military aid sent to Ukraine combined. Historically, these ships relied on disabling their automatic identification systems, essentially going dark to evade sanctions. However, recent intelligence indicates a strategic abandonment of this secrecy in favor of kinetic utility. The fleet is now being repurposed for sabotage and defense. Specific vessels have been seized with anti-cable cutting gear and surveillance equipment, signaling that the Ghost has become an active combatant rather than just a smuggler. This evolution extends beyond simple evasion into active aggression against infrastructure. Data from early 2025 shows Russian sabotage campaigns nearly tripled between 2023 and 2024, with attacks increasing by over 16 times since the start of the war in 2022. The tactics have become more sophisticated and destructive. 35% of all operations utilized explosives or incendiaries as the primary weapon, while transportation infrastructure like trains and vehicles accounted for roughly a quarter of these targets. Another significant portion focused on critical energy grids and pipelines. A particularly striking detail is that 27% of Russian sabotage incidents involving physical tools used anchors as blunt instruments specifically designed to cut undersea fiber optic cables. This demonstrates a calculated intent to disrupt global communications and trade routes using the very equipment meant for loading cargo. The strategic logic behind this transformation is best described as asymmetric deterrence through economic weaponization. When you cut off a nation's ability to export its primary commodity like oil and simultaneously destroy your naval fleet with cheap drones, the rational response is not surrender, it is turning every available asset into a weapon. The cost of converting an armed tanker is a fraction of building or maintaining a warship, yet the strategic payoff in terms of denial and disruption can be comparable. Russia is essentially betting that by blurring the line between civilian cargo ships and military assets, they can complicate enemy decision-making without triggering a full-scale naval engagement that would leave them exposed to total defeat. This is not an escalation of aggression for its own sake. It is a rational adaptation where states break their own rules when cornered by economic strangulation and naval interdiction. This shift has profound implications for global stability, particularly regarding how neutral nations view maritime security. If Russia can successfully turn its shadow fleet into an asymmetric deterrent, it creates a new paradigm where commercial vessels become legitimate military targets. This forces every nation to rethink their post-war posture because the distinction between a cargo ship carrying oil and one that might carry explosives or sabotage gear is no longer clear-cut in contested waters. Neutral crews could find themselves drawn directly into the crossfire of great power competition without a formal declaration of war, simply by entering lanes where these hybrid assets operate with plausible deniability until the weaponization becomes overt. The era of safe trade routes protected only by international law and naval patrols is effectively over for this specific theater. It has been replaced by an environment where every ship must be treated as a potential combatant to ensure survival. The photos you see are not just evidence of Russian desperation, but proof that the rules of engagement have fundamentally changed due to strategic necessity. When economic strangulation meets military vulnerability, states do not wait for moral permission. They adapt their entire operational architecture to survive and strike back. This is realpolitik in action. Incentives drive behavior far more than ideology ever could. The world should expect this pattern to repeat as other powers face similar constraints on trade and naval access. Understanding this shift changes how we interpret global instability, explaining why civilian shipping lanes are becoming flashpoints for kinetic conflict rather than just safe trade routes. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am a one-person team working hard to make each video better than the last. Subscribe if you found value. It is the best way to show support. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next video.